The red ships of the Vorthon Empire moved through space like metal sharks hunting for prey. Each vessel stretched over 2 kilometers long, covered in thick armor and deadly weapons. They had conquered 12 star systems and destroyed countless worlds. Nothing could stop them. Admiral Kang Minho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory. He was a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. His dark eyes looked at the star maps showing their target. Sol System, a small, unimportant place with primitive creatures called humans. "How long until we reach their world?" Kang asked his officer. 3 days, Admiral," replied Captain Lee Suna. She commanded the scout ships that would attack first. "The humans have weak defenses, old ships and basic weapons. This will be easy." Kang smiled, showing sharp teeth. The Empire had given him simple orders: take the Sol System, build a military base, kill anyone who fought back. He had done this many times before. It was always the same story. Commander Park Ji-won worked at his computer station, studying the humans. He was the ship's expert on alien species. Most of what he found confused him. These humans were strange creatures. They fought wars constantly among themselves. They built weapons designed to kill their own kind. Their military records showed. They loved violence and never gave up fighting. "Admiral," Park said, "I think we should be more careful with these humans. They seem very aggressive for such a young species." "Aggressive?" Kang laughed. "They have ships made of metal and basic laser weapons. We have plasma cannons that can destroy planets. What can they possibly do to us?" The Vorthon fleet had 800 warships. Each one could easily defeat 10 human vessels. The humans only had about 50 ships protecting their home world. The math was simple. This would be over quickly. On Earth, President Yoon Mirai sat in her office deep underground. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. The weight of leading humanity pressed down on her shoulders. Outside, air raid sirens wailed across every major city on the planet. "Madam President," said Admiral Cho Kyung-ho as he entered the room. He was the leader of Earth's military forces, a man who had spent his whole life preparing for this day. "The alien ships will be here soon. Are you ready to give the order?" Yoon looked at the reports on her desk. Intelligence files about the Vorthon Empire. Pictures of dead worlds they had burned. Lists of species they had wiped out completely. The aliens thought humans were weak and helpless. They were wrong. "Send the message," she said quietly. Across the solar system, every human ship received the same transmission. Captain Kim Tae-hyung read it aboard his patrol vessel Indomitable near Jupiter. The message was short and simple. "Operation Payback begins now. Show them what humans can do." Kim had been waiting for this moment his entire life. His grandfather had told him stories about the old wars, about the time before humans learned to hide their true strength, about the day they would get revenge for everything the galaxy had taken from them. The Vorthon fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Their sensors immediately detected the human ships. Admiral Kang studied the readings with satisfaction, just as his spies had reported. Weak defenses, primitive technology. This would be finished in hours. "Open a channel to all human vessels," he ordered. "I want them to hear their doom." The transmission reached every human ship and planet. Kang's voice was cold and arrogant. "Humans of Sol System, you will surrender immediately. Your species will serve the Vorthon Empire or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond." The human response came exactly 60 minutes later. It was broadcast from Earth on all frequencies. President Yoon's voice was calm, but filled with deadly promise. "Vorthon Empire, this is your only warning. Turn your ships around and leave our space immediately. If you attack us, you will not survive. This is not a threat, this is a fact." On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, the Vorthon officers burst into laughter. Captain Lee Suna wiped tears from her eyes. Did they just threaten us? These primitive creatures think they can fight the Empire? Only Commander Park did not laugh. He stared at his computer screens, showing human ship movements. Something was wrong. The human vessels were not running away or hiding behind their planet. They were moving into attack positions with perfect coordination. No panic, no fear. They acted like professional soldiers who had trained for this exact situation. "Admiral," Park said urgently, "their ship formations are very advanced. This is not how primitive species behave when facing a superior force." Kang waved him away. "You worry too much. Begin the attack. I want their homeworld burning within 6 hours." The first Vorthan attack group moved toward Mars. 20 heavy cruisers led by Captain Lee Suna. They expected to find human ships running in terror. Instead, they found Captain Kim Tae-hyung waiting for them. The battle lasted 37 minutes. When it was over, 3 Vorthon cruisers were destroyed and 2 more badly damaged. The human ship had vanished into the asteroid belt like a ghost. Captain Lee stared at her damaged fleet in shock. This was impossible. Human weapons should not be able to penetrate Vorthon shields. "How did they do that?" she whispered. Her weapons officer checked his readings 3 times before answering. "Their energy weapons are at least 50 years more advanced than our intelligence," reported. "And their ship moved faster than anything in our database." Back on the flagship, Admiral Kang received the battle report with growing anger. 5 ships damaged by 1 primitive human vessel? His officers must have made mistakes. There had to be a logical explanation. Commander Park pulled up more data from the battle. The human tactics were unlike anything he had ever seen. They used the planet's magnetic field to hide their approach. They attacked from multiple angles, simultaneously. Their weapons seemed designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in Vorthon armor. "Admiral," Park said carefully, "I think our intelligence about these humans is completely wrong." "Impossible," Kang snapped. "Our spies have watched them for years. They are barely capable of interstellar travel." But deep in his mind, doubt began to grow. The Empire had conquered hundreds of species. None had ever fought back this effectively. None had ever caused this much damage in the first engagement. None had ever made him feel afraid. On Earth, Admiral Cho Kyung-ho smiled as he read the battle reports. Everything was going exactly according to plan. The Vorthons thought they were hunting helpless prey. They had no idea they had walked into the web of the galaxy's most dangerous predator. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. Captain Kim Tae-hyung watched the Vorthon ships through his telescope. The alien vessels moved in perfect formation toward Jupiter's largest moon. They expected another easy victory. They would be disappointed. His ship Indomitable hid in the shadow of a giant asteroid. Human technology made the vessel nearly invisible to Vorthon sensors. The aliens still thought humans used primitive metal ships with basic engines. They were wrong about many things. "Captain," said his weapons officer, 3 enemy destroyers are moving into range." Kim nodded. The battle plan was simple but deadly. Let the Vorthans think they had found an easy target. Let them attack first. Then show them what human weapons could really do. The first Vorthan destroyer fired its plasma cannons. Bright energy beams struck the Indomitable's shields. The human ship shook but held together. The alien captain probably thought he had won. "Return fire," Kim ordered. The Indomitable's true weapons activated. Not the fake laser cannons the Vorthans expected, but quantum torpedoes that could tear through any known armor. The first destroyer exploded in a ball of fire. The second lost half its hull. The third tried to run. Kim's ship chased the fleeing destroyer through Jupiter's ring system. The Vorthan pilot was skilled, but human ships were faster and more maneuverable. The chase ended when the alien vessel flew straight into a prepared trap. Hidden human fighters emerged from the ice chunks and finished the job. On the flagship Eternal Glory, Admiral Kang stared at the battle reports in disbelief. Another Vorthon defeat. More ships lost to supposedly primitive humans. His officers whispered among themselves, fear creeping into their voices. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked. Captain Lee Suna checked her computer. 17 destroyed, 12 heavily damaged. The humans have lost only 3 vessels. The numbers made no sense. The Vorthan Empire had never suffered losses like this to any species. Their weapons were the most advanced in the galaxy. Their ships were built from the strongest metals. Their warriors trained from birth to fight and kill. Commander Park Ji-won continued studying human tactics. What he discovered made his blood run cold. These humans did not fight like any species in the Imperial database. They used tricks that seemed impossible. They appeared in places they should not be able to reach. They knew exactly where to hit Vorthon ships to cause maximum damage. "Admiral," Park said quietly, "I think these humans have been watching us for a very long time. They know our ships better than we do." Admiral Cho Kyung-ho stood in the command center beneath Seoul. Giant screens showed every battle happening across the solar system. His plan was working perfectly. The Vorthons thought they were fighting desperate defenders. They had no idea they faced the most carefully prepared military force in galactic history. "Status report," he ordered. Colonel Song Yejin stepped forward. She was young but had trained her whole life for this war. "All human colonies are in position. The outer defense ring is holding. Enemy casualties are rising faster than projected." Cho smiled grimly. Humanity had spent 800 years preparing for this day. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic had been designed for one purpose: destroying the Vorthon Empire completely. "Begin Phase 2, he said. Across the solar system, hidden human bases activated. What the Vorthons thought were mining stations revealed their true nature. Massive weapons platforms emerged from asteroids. Battle stations that had been disguised as space debris powered up their systems. Captain Ryu Junho commanded one of humanity's most secret weapons. His stealth ship Silent Hunter had been following the Vorthon flagship for 3 days. The aliens had no idea they were being watched. Every transmission they sent was intercepted. Every order was recorded. Every weakness was noted. Through his ship's cameras, Junho watched Admiral Kang pace around his bridge. The alien leader was starting to understand that something was very wrong. His confident smile had disappeared. His officers looked nervous and confused. "Send the intelligence report to Admiral Cho," Junho ordered his communications officer. "Tell him the Vorthon command structure is exactly as our spies predicted." Commander Bei Wanho led a squadron of human fighters toward Mars. The Vorthons had established a temporary base on the planet's surface. They thought they were safe behind energy shields and automated defenses. They were about to learn why humans had been the galaxy's most feared warriors before they learned to hide. The human attack began during a massive dust storm. Bei's fighters used the planet's weather as cover, appearing out of the red clouds, like deadly phantoms. Their weapons had been specifically designed to penetrate Vorthon shields. Years of captured alien technology had given human scientists every secret they needed. The base fell in less than 2 hours. No Vorthon survivors were found. The aliens had fought bravely, but uselessly. Human ground troops moved through the facility, with practiced efficiency, gathering intelligence and destroying everything they could not take. Back on Earth, President Yoon Mirai met with her military leaders. The initial battles had gone better than hoped. Vorthon losses were heavy and growing, but the real test was still coming. "How long before they realize the truth?" she asked. Admiral Cho checked his tactical displays. "Not long. They're surviving. Commanders are starting to understand they walked into a trap. Soon they will try to retreat. And when they do, we spring the real surprise," Cho said with cold satisfaction. On the Eternal Glory, Admiral Kang finally accepted what his officers had been trying to tell him. These humans were not primitive savages. They were something much more dangerous. Every battle had been a disaster for the Empire. Every attack had failed. The aliens who were supposed to surrender were winning. "Order all ships to defensive positions," he commanded. "We need time to understand what we are facing." But time was the one thing the humans would not give him. Captain Osubin led the next wave of attacks from her command ship Earth's Fury. She had studied Vorthon battle tactics for decades. She knew exactly how they would react to pressure. The human fleet attacked from 6 directions at once. Fast. Destroyers hit the enemy flanks while heavy cruisers pounded their center. Elite fighter squadrons targeted Vorthon supply ships and communication arrays. Every move was calculated to cause maximum chaos. Captain Lee Suna tried desperately to organize a defense, but her ships were scattered and confused. Human jamming devices blocked Vorthon communications. Fake signals led alien ships into prepared ambushes. What should have been an organized retreat became a panicked rout. Commander Park Ji-won watched the battle displays with growing horror. The Empire's most powerful fleet was being destroyed by creatures they had dismissed as barely civilized. How had their intelligence been so wrong? How had they made such a terrible mistake? "Admiral," he said urgently, "we need to withdraw immediately. These humans are far more advanced than we believed possible." But Admiral Kang was no longer listening. He stared at the tactical screens showing his fleet being torn apart. Hundreds of years of Vorthon military tradition were crumbling before his eyes. The Empire had never faced an enemy like this. As night fell on the third day of battle, the surviving Vorthon ships huddled together near Neptune's orbit. Half their fleet was gone. The other half was damaged and running low on supplies. Admiral Kang faced the most difficult decision of his career. He could order a retreat and admit the Empire had suffered its first major defeat, or he could call for reinforcements and risk losing even more ships to these terrifying humans. Either choice would likely end his career, but as he watched another Vorthon cruiser explode under human fire, he realized his career was the least of his problems. The Empire itself might not survive this encounter. On Earth, Admiral Cho Kyung-ho prepared for the next phase of his plan. The Vorthons were weakened and confused. Their morale was broken. Their tactics had failed completely. Now it was time to show them what real fear looked like. Admiral Kang Min-ho realized too late that every battle had been a lie. The humans were not defending their home desperately. They were playing with him like a cat plays with a mouse. Every retreat had been planned. Every victory the Vorthons thought they won was actually another step deeper into a carefully prepared trap. Captain Ryu Junho watched from his hidden position as the Vorthon flagship tried to reorganize its damaged fleet. The alien admiral was finally starting to understand the truth, but it was far too late. Human intelligence had been studying Vorthon military doctrine for centuries. Every weakness had been catalogued. Every mistake had been anticipated. "All Vorthon ships are exactly where we want them," Junho reported to Earth Command. "The Admiral is moving his fleet toward the asteroid belt just as predicted." The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter looked like empty space filled with floating rocks. The Vorthons thought it would provide cover for their damaged ships. They were wrong. Humanity had been modifying this region for decades, turning it into the galaxy's deadliest trap. Commander Park Ji-won studied his sensor readings with growing dread. Something was wrong with the asteroid field. The rocks moved in patterns that made no sense. Energy readings showed power sources where there should be only dead stone. His worst fears were being confirmed with each passing hour. "Admiral," Park said desperately, "we must leave this area immediately. The humans have turned these asteroids into weapons." But Admiral Kang could not retreat again. The Empire would not tolerate another withdrawal. His career and his life depended on achieving some kind of victory. He ordered his remaining ships forward into the belt. The trap sprang shut with devastating efficiency. Asteroids that looked like harmless rocks suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems. Mining platforms that had operated for years dropped their disguises and activated military-grade cannons. The entire asteroid belt came alive with deadly purpose. Captain Oh Subin commanded the operation from her position inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Her command center had been built over 20 years ago, disguised as a simple mining station. Now it controlled the most powerful weapons array ever assembled. "All batteries, open fire," she ordered. Thousands of hidden guns opened up simultaneously. The Vorthon fleet found itself surrounded by enemies they could not see until it was too late. Plasma beams struck from every direction. Torpedo launchers that had been camouflaged as mining equipment launched salvo after salvo of deadly missiles. Captain Lee Suna watched her destroyer squadron die around her. The humans had planned everything perfectly. Every escape route was blocked. Every defensive position was under fire from multiple angles. Her ships were trapped in a killing field with no way out. "How did they do this?" she screamed at her tactical officer. "How did they hide so many weapons?" The answer came from Commander Park's analysis of the battlefield. The humans had not built these weapons recently. Some of the installations were decades old, slowly constructed and carefully hidden over years of patient preparation. This was not a desperate defense. This was a carefully planned execution. On Earth, Admiral Cho Kyung-ho watched the battle with grim satisfaction. Phase 3 of Operation Payback was proceeding exactly as designed. The Vorthan fleet was trapped and being systematically destroyed. Soon it would be time for the final revelation. "Colonel Song," he said to his aide, "signal all hidden fleets. Begin convergence on Sol system." Colonel Song Yejin sent the coded transmission that would change galactic history forever. Across known space, human fleets that had been hiding for decades suddenly revealed themselves. The primitive species the Empire thought lived only on one small planet actually controlled territory spanning half the galaxy. The first reinforcement fleet appeared near Pluto, massive human dreadnoughts that made Vorthan ships look like toys. Admiral Lee Donghae commanded this force from his flagship Terra's Wrath. His ships had been waiting in the outer darkness for this moment. "This is Admiral Lee to all Vorthan vessels," he broadcast. "You have violated Terran space and committed acts of war against human colonies. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." More human fleets appeared throughout the solar system. Ships emerged from hyperspace with perfect timing and coordination. The Vorthans suddenly found themselves outnumbered 10-1 by enemies they never knew existed. Admiral Kang stared at his sensor displays in complete shock. Where there had been 50 human ships a week ago, there were now thousands. Massive battle fleets equipped with technology that seemed impossible. His communications officer was receiving surrender demands from human admirals across dozens of star systems. "This cannot be real," he whispered. But Commander Park knew it was very real. His analysis of human transmissions revealed the terrifying truth. These were not ships from Earth. They were vessels from human colonies throughout the galaxy. Colonies that had been established centuries ago under false identities and hidden from Imperial observation. Captain Nam Soo-jung commanded one of humanity's newest weapons. Her ship Vengeance Delivered was built using technology stolen from a dozen different alien species. It carried enough firepower to destroy an entire Vorthan battle group single-handed. "Target the enemy flagship," she ordered. "Let's show them what humans learned while they thought we were primitive." The Vengeance Delivered opened fire with weapons the Vorthans had never seen before. Energy beams that could pierce any known armor. Missiles that could track targets across star systems. Defensive systems that made the ship nearly invulnerable to return fire. Admiral Kang watched helplessly as his mighty flagship began to break apart under the assault. The bridge shook with each impact. Systems failed throughout the ship. His proud vessel, which had conquered a dozen worlds, was being torn apart by a single human ship. "All hands abandon ship," he finally ordered, but there was nowhere to run. Human ships surrounded every Vorthan vessel. Escape pods were being captured as quickly as they launched. The Empire's Third Fleet was not just defeated, it was completely trapped. Commander Jin Hyun-woo led the boarding parties that captured Vorthan ships. His soldiers moved with the precision of troops who had trained for this exact mission their entire lives. They knew every corridor and control room of Vorthan vessels because human spies had been mapping Imperial ships for generations. The captured alien databases revealed the Empire's deepest secrets: military codes, ship designs, star maps showing every Imperial world. But most importantly, they revealed the historical records that confirmed humanity's darkest suspicions. 800 years ago, the Vorthan Empire had attacked and destroyed the human homeworlds. The survivors had scattered across the galaxy, hiding among other species and slowly building strength. Everything the humans had told the Empire was a lie. Sol system was not their original home. Earth was just their newest stronghold. President Yoon Mirai addressed the captured Vorthan officers via video link. Her words were calm, but filled with centuries of accumulated rage. "You destroyed our original civilization," she said. "You thought you had wiped out humanity completely. You were wrong. We survived. We adapted. We prepared. And now we have returned to collect the debt you owe us." Admiral Kang found himself in a human prison cell, still trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. His jailers were polite but implacable. They treated him according to military law but made it clear that his empire was finished. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked Captain Kim Tae-hyung during an interrogation session. "Since the day you burned our first worlds," Kim replied. "Every human child learns about the debt we owe your empire. Every human soldier trains to collect that debt. You created us when you tried to destroy us." As reports of the Sol system battle spread throughout the galaxy, panic began to spread through the Vorthan Empire. If humans could destroy the Third Fleet so easily, what could they do to Imperial homeworlds? How many other human fleets were hiding in deep space waiting to strike? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Long-range sensors detected massive human task forces moving toward every major Imperial world simultaneously. The attack on Sol system had not been Earth defending itself. It had been humanity's opening move in a war of complete extermination. Admiral Cho Kyung-ho prepared the final phase of his plan. The Vorthan Empire would learn what happened to species that tried to commit genocide against humanity. They would learn why the survivors of their first attack had spent 8 centuries preparing for revenge. They would learn why humans were the galaxy's most dangerous predator species. The truth hit the Vorthan Empire like a plasma torpedo through the heart. Humanity had not been hiding on one small world for centuries. They had been expanding, colonizing, and preparing across dozens of star systems under false names and hidden identities. The primitive species the Empire thought it could easily conquer actually controlled more territory than the Vorthans themselves. Captain Nam Soo-jung stood on the bridge of her dreadnought Terra's Wrath as it emerged from hyperspace. Above Zenthera, the Vorthan capital world, the massive human ship cast a shadow over the planet's 3 moons. Its weapons could turn the entire world into burning ash within hours. "This is Captain Nam of the Terran Navy," she broadcast on all Imperial frequencies. "By order of the human High Command, this world is under military occupation. Any resistance will result in total destruction." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human fleets appeared simultaneously above every major Vorthan stronghold. Fortress worlds that had never been attacked suddenly faced invasion by enemies they never knew existed. The Empire's mighty Second Fleet, stationed at the military world of Malthus, lasted exactly 6 hours against Admiral Lee Dong-hae's assault force. On the bridge of his captured flagship, former Admiral Kang Min-ho watched the reports flooding. In 12 Imperial fleets destroyed in the first day of the human counterattack. 23 worlds under siege. The Empire's most powerful weapons proving useless against human technology that seemed decades ahead of anything in the Vorthan arsenal. "How did we miss this?" he asked Commander Park Ji-won, who was also now a prisoner. Park stared at the tactical displays showing human ships across the galaxy. "We saw what they wanted us to see. Every intelligence report, every spy mission, every scout vessel, they controlled all of it. We have been fighting an enemy that knew everything about us while we knew nothing about them." Commander Jin Hyun-woo led the assault teams that captured Vorthan research facilities across the Empire. What they found in the secret laboratories explained everything. Ancient records dating back 800 years. Files detailing the Empire's first encounter with humanity and the systematic destruction of human civilization. The original humans had been explorers and traders, spreading peacefully across the galaxy. The Vorthans had seen them as a potential threat to Imperial expansion. The solution had been simple and brutal: complete extermination. Every human world burned, every human ship destroyed, every human colony wiped from existence. Or so the Empire had believed. "Admiral Cho," Jin reported from the captured facility on Vorthan Prime, "I have the complete historical records. The Empire thought they killed every human in the galaxy, but our ancestors were smarter than they realized. The truth was more incredible than anyone had imagined. When the Vorthan attack began, human leaders had seen it coming. Secret evacuation. Fleets had scattered survivors across distant star systems. New colonies were established under false identities. Human refugees had spent centuries hiding among other alien species, slowly building strength and waiting for their chance at revenge. President Yoon Mirai addressed the galaxy from her bunker, beneath Earth. But now the whole galaxy knew that Earth was not humanity's original home. It was their newest fortress, built specifically to lure the Vorthan Empire into the trap that would destroy them forever. "People of the galaxy," she said, her voice broadcast to every inhabited world. "Today you witness justice. The Vorthan Empire tried to commit genocide against humanity 800 years ago. They failed. We survived. We remembered. And now we have returned to collect the debt they owe to our dead." Captain Park Min-seok commanded the human forces occupying Kepler Station, the Empire's largest military base outside the home system. Vorthan prisoners filled the detention centers, including high-ranking officers who still could not believe their mighty empire was collapsing so quickly. During interrogations, the captured aliens revealed the Empire's standard procedure for dealing with new species. Scout fleets would identify primitive civilizations. Military analysts would study their weaknesses. Then massive invasion forces would either conquer them for slaves or destroy them completely to prevent future threats. It worked perfectly for centuries, one captured Vorthan general admitted. "Until we met you humans again. We thought your species was extinct. We had no idea you were still alive and planning revenge." The human response was swift and merciless. World after world fell to human assault fleets that seemed to appear from nowhere. The Empire's defensive strategies, developed over centuries of conquest, proved useless against enemies who had studied Vorthan tactics for generations. Admiral Lee Donghae coordinated the assault on the fortress world of Malthos from his command ship, Justice Delayed. The planet's massive orbital defense platform should have made it impossible to attack. But human saboteurs had been in place for decades, disguised as maintenance workers and technical specialists. When the attack began, the defense systems turned on their own ships. Weapons that should have protected Vorthan vessels instead targeted them with deadly accuracy. The planetary shields that should have blocked human attacks opened gaps at precisely the right moments. "How is this possible?" screamed the Malthos system commander as his fleet died around him. The answer came from the captured files on every Vorthan world. Humans had been infiltrating the Empire for centuries. Engineers, scientists, military advisors, even government officials. Many of them had been human agents gathering intelligence and preparing for this day. Captain Lim Yuna led the ground assault on Vorthan Prime itself. Her Marines moved through the Imperial capital with the precision of soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this single mission. Each human fighter carried weapons inscribed with the names of destroyed human worlds, species the Empire had exterminated, civilizations erased from history. The Vorthan Home Guard fought bravely but hopelessly. Human weapons punched through their best armor like it was made of paper. Human tactics anticipated every defensive move before it was made. The capital city that had stood for 1,000 years fell in less than 12 hours. In his palace bunker, Overlord Thane the Eternal faced the collapse of everything he had built. The Emperor, who had ruled the galaxy's most powerful empire for 3 centuries, now cowered in an underground shelter, while human soldiers battled through his city above. "Your Majesty," his military advisor reported, "the humans have breached the outer defenses. Our forces cannot hold them back." Thane stared at the tactical displays showing human victories across his entire empire. Hundreds of years of Vorthan expansion were being undone in days. The species he had dismissed as primitive savages were systematically destroying everything the Empire had built. "Activate the final protocol," he ordered with cold desperation. His advisors looked at him in shock. The final protocol was the Empire's ultimate weapon, fusion charges hidden beneath every major Vorthan world. If the Empire could not survive, then no one would. The explosions would destroy entire star systems and kill billions of innocent beings. But even this desperate plan had been anticipated. Commander Jin Hyunwoo and his intelligence teams had found references to the fusion charges in captured Imperial files. Human infiltrators had spent years locating and disarming the weapons while their Vorthan colleagues never suspected a thing. "Charges are not responding, Your Majesty," the weapons officer reported with panic in his voice. "The humans must have sabotaged them." Captain Bae Wanho led the final assault on the Imperial throne room. His soldiers moved through corridors, lined with monuments to Vorthan conquests, statues of destroyed alien species, trophies taken from burned worlds, Museums celebrating 800 years of genocide and slavery. All teams remember your training, Bay commanded. These aliens tried to exterminate humanity. Today we return the favor. The battle for the throne room lasted 3 hours. Overlord, Thane's personal guard fought with the desperation of soldiers who knew they were defending a lost cause. But human weapons and tactics proved superior in every engagement. One by one, the defenders fell until only the Emperor himself remained. Admiral Cho Kyung-ho arrived to witness the Empire's final moments. The man who had planned humanity's revenge for decades stood before the alien ruler who had ordered the first human genocide. Both warriors recognized the historical significance of the moment. Your empire dies today, Cho said simply. But the galaxy will remember what happened when someone tried to destroy humanity. As the last Vorthan strongholds fell to human assault, forces, long-range sensors detected disturbing signals from beyond the galaxy's edge. Ancient civilizations that made the Vorthans look like children were stirring. Overlord Thane's final words proved prophetic. Greater powers were awakening, drawn by the sounds of galactic war. But humanity had 8 centuries of rage to burn through. They had the memory of every dead world to honor. And they had proven that no empire, no matter how powerful, could destroy the human species and survive the consequences. The galaxy had been warned. Let the ancient powers come. The final battle began above Zenthara Prime, the beating heart of the Vorthan Empire. Admiral Kang Minho, the sole survivor of his once mighty Third Fleet, found himself fighting alongside the Emperor's personal guard in what everyone knew would be their last stand. They faced Admiral Cho Kyung-ho's combined human armada, over 10,000 ships carrying the flags of colonies the Empire thought it had destroyed centuries ago. Each human vessel bore the scars and symbols of their long journey to this moment. The Terra's vengeance carried names of every human world the Vorthans had burned. The children's promise was crewed by descendants of survivors who had sworn their lives to this day. The final justice had been built using technology stolen from a dozen different alien species over centuries of careful preparation. Captain Lim Yuna led the boarding assault against the Emperor's palace ship. Her soldiers moved through the corridors with grim purpose. These were not conquerors seeking glory or treasure. These were the children and grandchildren of refugees carrying out a promise made in the darkness of space 800 years ago. Each human fighter wore armor inscribed with the names of dead worlds. Each weapon carried engravings listing exterminated species. Each soldier fought not just for victory, but for the memory of everyone who had died in the Empire's long history of genocide. The Vorthan defenders fought with the desperate courage of beings who knew their entire civilization was ending, but courage could not overcome centuries of human preparation. Every corridor had been mapped by spies. Every defensive position had been studied and countered. The palace that had stood for 1,000 years fell room by room to enemies who had planned this assault for generations. In his command center deep beneath the capital, Overlord Thane the Eternal made his final gambit. If the Empire could not survive, then he would take his enemies with him. Hidden fusion charges throughout Zenthara's crust would destroy the planet and every human ship in orbit. One final act of spite from a ruler who had never known defeat. Commander. Park Ji-won, now a prisoner but still watching the battle unfold, realized what the Emperor planned. Your Majesty, he said desperately, destroying the planet will accomplish nothing. The humans have already won. This will only prove they were right about us. But Thane was beyond reason. 3 centuries of absolute power had made him incapable of accepting defeat. If he could not rule the galaxy, then he would burn it down, rather than let others inherit what he had built. The race to stop the planetary destruction became a running battle through the deepest levels of the Imperial Palace. Colonel Song Yejin coordinated the evacuation of human forces, while Captain Bai Wanho led a desperate mission to find and disarm the fusion charges. The final confrontation took place in the throne room itself. Overlord Thane faced Admiral Cho Kyung-ho in single combat while human engineers worked frantically to prevent the planet's annihilation. 2 representatives of species locked in a war that had lasted 800 years. Even if you kill me, Thane snarled as he fought. There, are older powers in the galaxy than my empire. Ancient civilizations that make us look like insects. You may have won this war, but greater challenges await you in the darkness between stars. Cho dodged the Emperor's plasma blade and struck back with his own weapon. Let them come, he replied, coldly. Humanity has learned patience. We spent 8 centuries preparing to destroy you. We can spend another 8 centuries preparing for whatever comes next. The duel ended when Bay's engineers successfully disabled the fusion charges with seconds to spare. Zenthera Prime would survive, but the Vorthan Empire was finished forever. Thane's final desperate gambit had failed just like everything else. With the Emperor's death, organized Vorthan resistance collapsed across the galaxy. The last Imperial fleet surrendered rather than face complete annihilation. Worlds that had served the Empire for millennia welcomed human liberation forces with relief rather than fear. Captain Kim Tae-hyung, now Admiral of the 4th Fleet, oversaw the liberation of former Vorthan slave worlds. Species that had been forced to serve the Empire for generations were offered a choice: freedom under human protection, or the right to seek their own destiny among the stars. Most chose to stay under human guardianship. They had seen what happened to empires that practiced slavery and genocide. They had no desire to face humanity's wrath if they followed the Vorthan example. President Yoon Mirai delivered the final address from Earth, broadcast to every inhabited world in known space. The careful facade that had hidden humanity's true nature for centuries was finally dropped completely. The galaxy would know exactly what it was dealing with. People of the galaxy, she began. Today marks the end of the Vorthan Empire and the beginning of a new age. Humanity reveals itself not as conquerors, but as survivors who refuse to let their species die. For 800 years we prepared for this moment. We infiltrated your governments, studied your technologies, and learned your weaknesses. The transmission showed footage from across the former empire. Human fleets at every major world. Human soldiers liberating slave camps. Human engineers dismantling weapons of mass destruction. The species the galaxy had dismissed as primitive savages controlled more territory and wielded more power than any civilization in recorded history. Let this be a warning to every species, every government, every empire that might consider following the Vorthan example. Yoon continued. Any civilization that practices slavery, any government that commits genocide, any empire that wages wars of extermination will face the same fate. Humanity has kept its promise to the dead. Never again will the strong prey upon the weak without consequence. The galaxy had been fundamentally changed. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were now controlled by human patrol fleets. Governments that had allied with the Vorthans scrambled to prove they had never supported imperial policies. Species that had practiced slavery quickly abolished the institution rather than risk human intervention. But even as humanity celebrated its victory, long-range sensors detected troubling signals from beyond the galaxy's edge. Ancient civilizations that had slumbered for millions of years were stirring to life. Emperor Thane's final words had been prophetic. Greater powers were awakening, drawn by the sounds of galactic war. Admiral Lee Dong-hae stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the sensor readings with concern. Admiral Cho, he reported, deep space monitors are detecting massive energy signatures from outside our galaxy. Something big is coming. Cho nodded grimly. He had expected this. Humanity's revelation of its true power would inevitably attract attention from older civilizations. The galaxy was about to learn that the Vorthan Empire had been small and weak, compared to what lurked in the cosmic darkness. Begin Phase 2 of our expansion plan, Cho ordered. If ancient empires want to test themselves against humanity, they will find us ready. Across human space, massive construction projects began. Shipyards that had been hidden for centuries revealed themselves. Weapons projects that had been developed in secret entered full production. Humanity began preparing for the next war even before the celebrations of the current victory had ended. Captain Nam Soo-jung commanded the new deep space patrol fleets that would watch for threats from beyond the galaxy. Her ships carried the most advanced sensors and weapons humanity could build. They would provide early warning when the next challenge arrived. As the human fleets dispersed to establish their new galactic order, the message was clear to every species watching. Humanity had revealed itself as the apex predator of the galaxy. They had kept their promise to avenge every act of genocide and slavery. They had proven that no empire, no matter how ancient or powerful, was strong enough to destroy the human species. The galaxy had been warned. Earth's children had kept their oath to the dead. And now, they waited patiently in the darkness between stars for whatever ancient powers might dare to test themselves against humanity's carefully prepared wrath. Never again would genocide go unpunished. Never again would slavery go unchallenged. Never again would the strong prey upon the weak without facing the consequences. The age of human dominance had begun. Let the ancient empires come.